Oh, go on, smile. I don't know that you heard me, but I said you don't look like Linda Cox, so...
Don't think so.
No. So who are we seeing today?
Yeah, I'm the president, Ian Hunter, and Paul is here to support it. He's going to do the talking.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the council.
You can sit down if you want to. I mean, you don't have to stand.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no. We want you to feel relaxed.
Me too.
Good.
The Kart Club began in 1960 through a relationship with the council. It was put into a rubbish dump there, and it has expanded 3 times since then. But coming through to the present day, the Kart Club can't expand any further because of noise constraints. And so the essence of the Kart Club's submission today is to ask the council to bring forward the funding that it has got set aside for a relocation. The Kart Club is a great family, represents a great family sport. The operation of karts on the track is in contrast to the operation of racing on the roads and things like that. The Kart Club have organised themselves and got a track there. The Kart Club has got a long-term lease with the council for about 30 years. I haven't got the exact figures here. And you have, great. So either the Kart Club stays where it is and is constrained from growing, or is relocated. And they have purchased land subject to resource consent, which they could relocate to. That's not necessarily a simple proposition, but it is a ordinary development type proposition.
So where have you purchased land? Oh, sorry, I didn't know that.
In McLean's Island.
Right.
At the back of the airport. Yeah.
Is it subject to that land having been quarried?
Sorry?
Is it subject to that land having been quarried?
Yes, but that is well underway. The quarriers have taken about 100,000 cubes out. They estimate, talking to them yesterday, about another 400,000 could come out over the next 12 months, and roughly they estimate that would be around the time when the hole would be ready. So for those not aware, the basic idea is that the Kart Club could be located at the bottom of a quarry, which obviously is like an acoustic bun, but even better. And of course we could add buns around that as well. So if we take a net bottom floor level of 4 metres and then add, say, 5 metre buns around, you're looking at effectively 9 metres of barrier around the outside. So, you know, you could be looking at a situation where the Kart Club becomes isolated from a noise perspective.
Wow.
Talking to Marshall Day the other day, they are strongly of the opinion that the noise issues would be very acceptable from their point of view.
That's, I mean, that's the issue, isn't it?
It is very much the issue.
Yeah.
And I believe that the council has got an opportunity to, there is one objector, rightly so, over there, which is a wildlife trust. It's quite famous, and they have an objection.
Kind of Arana Park.
No? There's the Isaac Conservation Trust that have a objection to it.
The black swans.
Yeah, there's a black swans, but it's my personal opinion, not the Kart Club's opinion necessarily, that the council could instigate a innovation to its ordinary resource management procedures and have a single issue hearing around this. The Wildlife Trust could be invited to make their presentations, and the developers / the Kart Club could make their presentations. This issue could be heard and resolved one way or another, and then all the interested parties could then move forward after that to develop the site.
Has that been mooted as a...
It has in the last 48 hours. The Wildlife Trust has, in their words, in the first instance, not agreed to that. Council staff probably haven't had time to respond, and it'll be my respectful submission that it's not really a staff level decision because it represents a variation in typical processes. Normally you would develop the full concept, but from my perspective, if you spend all that money developing the full concept and the site's not really viable for this one single issue, it's a waste of money.
Chicken and egg.
If you step back right to just
Swan
basic
egg.
fairness, a resource consent is a permission.
Yeah.
So what my suggestion is that the initial resource consent be a permission to apply for a noise profile, not the track, not the building, to just simply ask each other, would the council give this permission? And the council is conflicted because they have an interest through being the landlord, but they could appoint an independent commissioner to hear this single issue, which would then give everyone clear air to either move forward or go back.
Actually, that's quite interesting, because when you think why you're in the position that you're in, it's actually the requirement to free up more land for residential development, which is a direct result of the earthquakes. So I would have thought that a special procedure would actually fit with the direction of the land use recovery plan, for example. I mean, you're the flow-on effect. You're not the residential effect, but you know, bluntly, you have to move in order for the residential development to go on. So what you're suggesting actually sounds like something that we could promote as something through the current legislation as well.
I believe so, and I respectfully suggest that it would be a good innovation to consider in other contexts. Effectively, from a developer's point of view, you often get into a situation where, although you've got a good hunch you're going to succeed, you know, to convince bankers and other people to get on board, you need a high level of certainty, and to be able to isolate the key issues that are a barrier, and in all fairness, get those heard and get a decision, while for your planning team might be a subtle amount extra of work, it actually in the long run means they're not going to be working through stuff that will never actually go ahead.
Yeah, that sounds... Vicky?
Just in terms of the possible date by which you could shift to McLean's Island site, could you do that by 1st of September 2017?
I believe that would be unrealistic without making adjustments to the quarry. The quarry has suggested 12 months, and then say if we give 12 or 18 months to build after that, I'm running out of mathematical power, but it
So you're
sounds a
now
bit early.
looking 2.5 years out. You want the funding brought forward to when?
Well, as soon as possible, but that's more to feed into the things like the resource consent process. But if you took that idea I suggested, then I think you'll drive the costs down remarkably, because effectively you can remove the contentious issue, and then if you get a permission on that, or you issue a permission on that, then everything else becomes uncontentious, and you should be able to develop it together a lot cheaply.
Would that bring down the amount that, like, never mind about that process, I'll put that aside because there are some flaws in that process, but would that bring down the cost that it would need to go in the budget for the relocation of the Cars Road Kart Club?
I don't think it's appropriate for the kart club to make a comment on the costs, but I would be happy to say that I think that it does.
But you don't want to go further than that?
No, well,
I mean,
costs are an interesting thing, aren't they? I mean, it's a long way away, and if the trust decides they want to take the full right of appeals, or for instance, then we need to know that, and then obviously that might change the perspective on the site. But
And can I just ask one more? Is there a plan B if that site is not available?
just from talking around council, I understand Mr. Mora is interested in Ruapuna as an option.
No. Have you got a plan B?
no, we haven't.
Haven't.
No.
Yeah, because I mean, there are two issues. I mean, it may or may not be a suitable site, you know, so if you don't get it across the line, even if you go through a different process, then you're in the... All that happens is that you've got to work out what plan B is a lot quicker. Anyway, I've got Jimmy and then Phil.
There would be can I just speak a minute? There would be a plan B, because the people who are acquiring it have got so much land out there, they could put us, if the problem is with the Isaac Trust, they could put us further away from them. So that is possible, but the time frame would take longer to quarry. They've got many hundred acres out there to quarry, so they could shift us over.
So the numbers on that are, if you use the figure of 600 metres difference between the Averys and the closest point of the track, and we know from our knowledge around noise for the modelling on the track that residential development is allowed to about 400 metres, 150 metres under certain circumstances. So we think that the site, the current location, Marshall Day think would be fine, but if you move right to the far end of their holdings, you're looking at well over 2 Ks. So you can see at that point that it really becomes an ideological objection rather than one in fact.
Is there any possibility of getting them to...
Hang on, I've got a list of people to ask questions, so Jimmy.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. But regarding to the funding, you know, if like ISAC, I mean the trust, their particular concern is noise, the mitigation. So the funding from current is 3.5 to increase with 7.4. Do you think whether you share this kind of the funding increase or council need to consider? I mean, relocation of the kind of car club.
Well, they have repriced it. They've done a new budget, haven't they?
I don't quite understand the question, but if the question is it the question that do what?
I think that
2013.
I think councillor.
And the relocation is $3.5 million. But right now, if you mitigation of this noise, reverse effect, probably need to increase a lot.
But they're already the council have repriced at it. It's substantially higher than 3.5 million.
That's
It has
right.
been recosted, I believe.
I think that's what Jimmy Chen said, but we haven't approved that.
No, that's right. You haven't
That goes
approved
to
it. That's
council
right.
tomorrow, but
Yeah.
One comment I think the Kart Club could make is that if you look over the long term, it's not just about a bunch of guys driving carts around. It's about noise management for the whole city. In the long term, if you think about places like Auckland where you've got that racetrack right in the middle of, you know, urban thing, and that just the hassle of managing that, I think if there is a good opportunity to move the club into a long-term location, that's going to be good. That's about the city as a whole, and I think that's a point worth considering.
yeah.
And Paynes Island is a
but
good
I think
spot.
the point that Councillor Chib was making, or he may not have been, but it would be the point I would make, which is if you didn't have a 30-odd year lease, we wouldn't be paying for it at all.
That's right.
So that's the issue. So you know, it's kind of a trade-off which people are going to have to weigh up. Phil.
Thank you. I can see how there's some real advantages for the Kart Club and with this new location or proposed location. So there are some issues though. You've referred to the noise issue. I'm just wondering, in terms of it being in an old quarry site and the area already being quarried, are there any reports available regarding safety of the aquifer in that area?
My own research into it is that there, from just talking casually with the quarry owner, is there been some talk about whether there would be interaction with the planned irrigation scheme on the other side of the river, but at the moment I think it would be okay to proceed a little bit further until those reports are got in. So at the moment they're only talking about 4 metres down, whereas the resource consent for the quarry is some 6 or 7 metres, so it would be difficult to say that would be a problem, wouldn't it?
Well, it'd be interesting to see the report and what the report says.
Exactly.
But we haven't got it yet. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much for your time. I mean, obviously, I've really gone over a lot of time, but since people are offended by my not allowing questions, David?
I'll forgo mine.
No?
I'll forgo.
Well, is there anything, I mean, like the paper's coming to council tomorrow, so.
Well, I was just really interested in the fairly extensive area of quarrying. Have you had any discussion with the quarry about sort of potential location in an area that would not be subject to noise issues with the Nature Trust, or?
Well, the first point would be that it'd be our formal position that there is no issue here with the proposed site. But if we're talking about managing conflict, then the issue is that the quarry has begun digging its wall and it's going to work back to the site that would have been ideal. So it's their own private interest at issue here. And I did sort of say, And he basically said, well, we've already got started and we're going to work back. So if we could find a business case to make it in their interest to start at the other end, for instance, being cheeky, if Isaacs wanted to dig out this quarry and start it, you see the basic point. If they got started at the other end, then we could go in after them there. So I don't think it's too early, but at the moment it's not really on the table technically, but some solution might get it there.
And your point of sort of addressing noise issues well ahead of the city is great, but I think that's what Ruapuna did probably 20 or 30 years ago too, but things have caught up with them.
Well, I think, that's great. City's growing, it's good, and I hope this one does too.
Yeah. Look, thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming here today. If I could invite